It's Black Friday. I could have been out braving being around other humans trying to get a PlayStation 5 this morning, but instead I decided to wake up nice and early to watch the latest episode of The Mandalorian as soon as I could. And I chose wisely because this episode was jam-packed with big reveals, firsts, guest stars, answers, new mysteries, new questions. So let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Let me know, what did you think about this episode, and where do you think things are headed? When I start talking, I'll give my spoiler-free thoughts for just a couple of minutes in case you haven't seen the episode, and then I'll dive into all the details and all the good stuff in the episode. So down below in the comment section, feel free to spoil away. One thing before we get started, today is Black Friday, and so I do have a sale going on in my merch store, so you can get one of these I Talk Movies Too Much shirts for only $13. I've got a bunch of other designs as well as a bunch of other fun kind of novelty shirts in there. So right now there is a sale going on this weekend for Black Friday through Cyber Monday. $13 t-shirts, 35% off everything. And let's get started talking about spoiler-free impressions about the episode. And as for me, I just thought it was another really solid episode, that it was nice to finally get to see certain characters progress the story to a point where it's like, okay, we're learning some things. There's a bunch of answers given here, new threads opened, kind of everything that I want from an episode of The Mandalorian. We got it once again in this episode in a way that really kind of does feel like we got some satisfying answers while also teasing all these future possibilities of where things could be headed. And if you've been following along with my reviews throughout the season, you know I was really critical at the end of the second episode. And it's not that it's not like I hated it. It's not like it embarrassed itself. It just was like, where are we going? Why aren't they giving us anything? And so it was severely felt like filler to me, that second episode. And the first episode just kind of felt like cool side quest. I liked the side quest, but I didn't know where we're going. And now we've had a set of episodes in a row that really make it clear where it's headed. We've met a lot of different people along the way and seeing a bunch of different puzzle pieces, and you can start to see how they're going to fit together. That's what I wanted. Still strikes me a little bit as odd that they structured it the way that they did, with kind of two side quest ones with no answers, but the season has redeemed itself. And even if you start adding it up, we've already for this season had 4 episodes that kind of put some big pieces in place, and one that was kind of like that standalone side quest sort of thing. And with the first season, 4 of the episodes were part of the bigger story. 4 of the episodes were just kind of side quests of like, hey, what do I do this week to be on the run? And so it already feels like we're getting more meat in this season. It just happened to front load it with more side quests than before. And from there, let's move on to our spoiler walkthrough of the entire episode. Now, a whole lot of us were anticipating this was going to be a pretty big episode for a number of reasons. At the end of episode 3, the name Ahsoka Tano was mentioned, and Mando was told where to find Ahsoka. So we knew in the very near future, we are going to see live action Ahsoka Tano. It was extremely unlikely they were going to stretch that out for 5 episodes or something like that. Beyond that, we knew that Dave Filoni, showrunner of the Clone Wars, was writing and directing this episode. And so a bunch of us didn't think it was going to be last week that we saw. It was going to be this week. So once again, very excited to see what he's going to do. Third one is that as of last week, there's no more trailer footage. All the footage for the trailers for this season were from the first 4 episodes. So we had nothing for the rest of the season, which in and of itself just makes you go, what's in these episodes that they don't want us to see? It just kind of tickles the imagination as to what can be in there if they can't have a single shot without feeling like they're giving a little bit too much away. And so naturally, I went into this episode very excited to see what's going to happen with Ahsoka Tano. How much is she going to be in the episode? Right off the bat, boom, she shows up. And more so, like, I was assuming she'd be in the whole episode. I wasn't thinking they were going to hold that to the end. But literally, the first sequence, Mando hasn't even arrived, and she's mowing guys down with her dual lightsabers. On her journey to get some information, and she's going through in the darkness using the fog to disappear when she turns her sabers off, and just stealth taking guys out, but also like confidently revealing herself when she needs to. And so it just kicks off. So you guys know Ahsoka Tano is going to be all over this episode, and she's going to be taking guys out with lightsabers. And so that's what we get. And we realize that she's trying to get some information. So immediately, very cool, exciting sequence. Then we cut to Mando on his journey to this planet and get a little bit of, we always have to have a little bit of cute baby Yoda, and he's just obsessed with that little ball on the knob in the cockpit. And so we even see him kind of like using the Force to try and obtain that. At the moment, we just think it's kind of a cute little moment of like, wow, he is only the most petty when it comes to his usage of the Force. But it actually ties in later to what happens in the episode. So Mando arrives on this planet. We know, man, Magistrate Lady, she does not seem very nice. She said earlier she doesn't care if she kills people. It seems like Ahsoka isn't necessarily trying to liberate the people, but at least she cares about them. And she's like, you're going to kill them anyway, so might as well battle you and not give you what you want. So he shows up in this town that we're already like anxious about. Whatever's going on here, it's not good. And clearly all the locals are afraid of him. They don't want to talk to him. They're running away from him. Magistrate Lady immediately calls him into her office. And as he's walking by, like, we see people like hung up on, like, chained up publicly being tortured. So it seems like a real charming, pleasant place. And as we're kind of walking in, I realize that the guy that's her number one gunslinger for our Magistrate Lady here is Michael Biehn. And if you're not familiar with my channel or kind of my favorite movies, Michael Biehn is in a bunch of my favorite movies. And so, he's Aliens, Terminator. And so I love it when he shows up in anything. And they kind of announced it like we knew he was in this season, but they hadn't showed him. He wasn't in the trailers. They didn't tell us who he was playing. And so we're kind of going through this episode, and I wasn't thinking about him, so I didn't catch him in the opening scene. So as they're walking up and Mando's there and he starts talking to him a little bit, oh, that's Michael Biehn. Love it anytime he shows up in something like this. Though I pretty quickly put together, okay, he's probably not going to be as fun of a character as I was hoping. With the particular way that he's being used, that he's not even the magistrate. He's like the hired gun muscle. Set my expectations right. We're not going to get as much great Michael Biehn as I would like. But as I've said in many of these reviews before, I love the way they cast this show. It feels like it's cast just to put a smile on my face, because him showing up, that puts a big grin on my face. So Mando goes in. Magistrate Lady wants to hire him to kill Ahsoka, because there's a long history of Mandalorians being at odds with the Jedi. He's a Mandalorian. She's a Jedi. So it seems like a match made in heaven. And conveniently, our magistrate's weapon of choice, her thing she's trained in that she just happens to have right over here, ta-da, a Beskar spear that she offers to pay our Mandalorian friend to go kill the Jedi. Because she doesn't realize he showed up specifically because he wanted to have a chat with this Jedi. So he agrees to do it and heads off, and we get a fun little 10-second fight between Mando and Ahsoka, and he quickly is like, hey, Bo-Katan sent me. I just want to talk. And immediately she pauses, looks around, and she sees baby Yoda, the child, sitting there. And she's like, oh, I hope I get to talk about that little guy right there. And immediately like, oh, nice. Like we're like, good. She like, we're getting this. We're going to get some answers and figure some stuff out here. So they end up having some sort of forced chat going on where they're looking at each other while Mando's walking around, pacing in the distance, paying attention. And then they start to reveal things to us. And backstory, my theory, the one that I don't know how much I even said in some of these, is that going back, possibly pre-Phantom Menace. He's some sort of early clone experiment from Palpatine, maybe some earlier scheme that he was working on. Who knows what it could have been. But that was kind of my theory as to maybe where they were headed with some of this stuff, cloning stuff. So a clone of Yoda that somehow is an experiment that was just out there in the open. Turns out, not that. So she reveals to us that he was training in the Jedi temple. Like he was there, and you even wonder like, wait, if we go back and rewatch every episode of the Clone Wars, are we going to see like a little green guy hiding behind a chair, something like that? Are we going to spot him in there? But so he was training, and then Order 66 goes down. He's put into hiding, and it talks about his memory going dark. So there's even like a big myth, like what exactly is kind of going on here? Why? It's not just the fact that he's a child by the nature of his people. They age slowly, whatever that means. But it seems like maybe there's a little bit something else going on there. So it's nice to have some answers. Like, you don't want to just drag out forever. We don't know anything about him. We don't know. We just call him the child, Baby Yoda, forever. So now we got some answers, and it has a tie to her. So she's glad to see him, and we get a name, Grogu, which doesn't roll off the tongue quite as easily as Yoda, Baby Yoda, or even the child. So I don't know that Grogu is going to catch on, since it's not nearly as cute of a name as Baby Yoda. But at least we formally know his name. We know that what we're supposed to call him. If you happen to meet him, got to shake his hand. And if you want him to force throw a ball over to you, Grogu. I don't know that that's the name that I'm going to use, but it's simply nice to have an official name for him, to really have an answer there. Then we go into Jedi training mode, start doing a little bit of force catch. It's pretty nice to see. Mando doesn't really play catch with Baby Yoda. He plays fetch with him. He's like, good boy, move it over there. And he does it, pats him on the head. I have a new dog as of this last week. And so we've been playing these games with my new dog. Mando's doing it with his new Grogu. I guess he's had his Grogu for a while. He just didn't know it was a Grogu. And then we get the big important information from Ahsoka is that she can't train him, that he's too attached, he's too angry, and she's very nervous about that. And that really shouldn't surprise us too much. It's funny that like all the fan theories that we have, and I saw a ton of people in the comments, obviously that Baby Yoda's going to get left with him to be trained, and all the theories are kind of heading that direction. Will she come along? Will he be willing to leave? All these thoughts, and then like the obvious one that should be right in front of us. He's 50 years old. He's very attached to Mando, and all of these signs would indicate, maybe not the prime person to do Jedi training in light of the Anakin saga and everything that went on there, in particular with Ahsoka, who knows very well what happens with some of these ingredients. It's funny that like of all of our fan theories, that wasn't the one that I was seeing popping up of like, Ahsoka's probably going to be very nervous about a person in this situation. Probably questions her ability to trade the person. That's not where we were headed, but she's just flat out says no. Like very quickly, cool. He can play force fetch. He can play force catch. I'm not going to train him though. No, just let his powers go away and have fun with him. Be his dad. Just do that. Of course, she's dismissive. There's like really two sides to all of this. Number one, he's a force user. Hey, can you train him? Isn't that what you space sorcerers do? The other side to it, Moff Gideon and the Imperials are still tracking him down. Like there's this side to it like, doesn't really matter if you want to train him or not. He kind of needs to be protected from very dangerous people that are after him for all this other stuff too. So I didn't find it seemed like probably should have had a little bit more back and forth. Like, cool, you don't want to train him. Can you help me find people to protect him? Like that's the other side to this. So it seemed like they it was touched on, but we didn't elaborate on the other very important piece to this. He needs to be protected, and those guys want him for something, so we need to stop those guys from getting, because they are bad. And perhaps even she could have said, I'm not interested in your politics. Like there's some things that maybe they could have said that she could be like, okay, I can see why she would say that. That would make a little bit of sense. But regardless, so Mando says, hey, she told me to kill her. I can help you with your problem. And we're pretty sure that I'm hearing this thinking she doesn't have his promise code and all that stuff. She's just using him to get her job done. But so they go and decide to raid the city. And they start sneaking around, little tricks kind of happening here and there, seeing that you got two trained killer people of different styles with different weapons sneaking through the city, taking people out. And you end up with Ahsoka versus Magistrate with Beskar spear. And it seemed like Magistrate Lady was doing a little bit too good. It's like Ahsoka was having fun with her or something like that. Because it seemed like there's a bunch of tricks she could have done. Just like lifted her up with the Force, cut her legs off or something like that. Picked her up, put her 100 feet in the air, smash her onto the ground. Bunch of stuff I would have done if I was a Force user battling a lady. But I know we wanted to have a nice showdown. So we got a nice showdown. We've got some flippies in there and dual saber action, single saber action, and then she wins. But outside we got Mando doing a little bit of a gunslinger action. We get Michael Biehn shows back up, has a little bit of a chat with Mando of like, hey, both of us are warriors for the right cause. We can do a lot. This isn't the right cause. And so you think for a moment like he's going to maybe team up. And I knew, don't get your hopes up. That's not where this is headed. This isn't where it's headed. But wouldn't it be nice if we get some big reveal about Michael Bihn's character and he's going to team up with Mando? We're going to get to see more of Michael Biehn. No, he's not. He's just a hired gun that wants some money and not for a good cause. And so he tries to outgunsling Mando. Man, that's not going to happen. So he gets shot, goes down, and Michael Bihn's gone. Pretty disappointed about that. I would have loved to see more of him. The character on paper, the only reason he's memorable, the only reason that he's interesting to me is because it's Michael Biehn. He could bring a little bit more swagger, a little bit something to it than average casting choice. But on paper, what's written there, Michael Biehn was given a very dull, boring character. That's disappointing me because I would love, love, love to see Hicks, to see Kyle Reese do something a lot more interesting. The way that throughout the season, all of these other people that they've cast have been like, yes, oh man, Timothy Olyphant, that's a fun character as the Marshal. Oh wow, Katie Sackcloth as Bo-Katan. Oh, that's a lot of fun. And then Michael Biehn, random gunslinger guy that loses with 10 lines of dialogue, 8 lines of dialogue or whatever. I would have liked to have more from him because obviously I'm a big fan of his. Cut back to Ahsoka, and she defeats the Magistrate, and we get the big reveal. Who's she looking for? What's this information that she wants? Grand Admiral Thrawn. She is looking for Grand Admiral Thrawn. I think I'm mispronouncing. I'm getting all so excited talking about him that my mouth is getting all marbly. Grand Admiral Thrawn. So he's a legend from the legendary books, the ones that are out of canon, but a character that was loved so much that as soon as they kicked it out of canon, they went, all right, Timothy Zahn, the guy that wrote the original trilogy where Thrawn showed up, I want you to come back, write more books. Then they put him into the show Rebels, and so they started making very prominent. I through the theory videos I've seen and other things like that, I was anticipating we were going to hear Thrawn's name this season. And maybe we'll even see him. Maybe that'll be the big reveal at the end of the season or something like that. But I was anticipating Thrawn, his name present at some point in time in the season. I wasn't expecting in this episode. I wasn't thinking our new piece of the puzzle with Ahsoka is that she's looking for Thrawn. I wasn't expecting that. But so we find that out, which just makes you go, okay, wait, who's going to be cast? When's he going to show up? How's that going to play in? What it could mean? Exciting stuff. But that's what we get. Well, we get is the name, and she's hunting for him. And then as we're kind of heading off, she tells me, like, I cannot help you. It's not going to happen. But, hey, here's a new place to go on your quest. Jedi Temple. Put his hand up. Put him up on the temple. Push the button. And if it's meant to be a Jedi, I'll show up to help you. Which, granted, she walked away from the Jedi Order. So even the idea that she would be the one... It's fun for fans. It doesn't make the most sense in general that she would be the person. There's not a lot of Jedi out there, but she's also not the most positive of Jedi figures or of Force users, not the most positive towards the Jedi, given her past with them. So we get the next destination where Mando needs to go to place it to try and find out who will help him, who should help him, will they help him, or anything like that. And he heads off back into space with Grogu. And as I said at the beginning, just another solid episode. Great action, big reveals, moving the story forward, actors cast that I love to see in stuff like this. So just in general, what I want from The Mandalorian. When I think great episode of Mandalorian, this is what I'm thinking of. And as I've kind of said the last couple of weeks, the first week, I need to give it a little bit more time to process it, watch through them again to see all the pieces fit together, to know which one really sits out on top to me. But at the moment, we've got 4 of the 5 episodes all are kind of competing for that number 1 spot. That's a good situation when you got 4 out of 5 episodes competing for the top spot. And unfortunately for Chapter 10, distinctly at the bottom, no debate, no questions. And hopefully by the time we get to the end of the season, we're over halfway. We only got 3 episodes left. The last couple are going to be big showdowns. The question is, what's next week going to be? From there, let's move on to predictions for the rest of the season. We got 3 episodes left. So the thing where it gets interesting for me is that this season keeps setting up all these different quests that people are on where we have more information than the characters of how it all fits together. So you have Bo-Katan hunting down Moff Gideon for the Darksaber, while we know Moff Gideon is alive, hunting down Mando for the child, Grogu. We know that he's hunting down Ahsoka Tano. Ahsoka Tano is hunting down Grand Admiral Thrawn. Throw in the mix, we also have Boba Fett probably trying to track down his armor. So there's a lot of different people hunting things down, and we have a better picture of how it all fits together than they do, as the information is given. So as I said that, you might think, wait, they know that. I was saying it as the situations happened. We had more information than they did. Now they're slowly piecing it together as we already can sort of do. So that's just an interesting way to do a story like this, to where there's all these pieces and we know more than the characters. And so we can start imagining where this could be headed, how it could come together. And you have this, you don't quite get it yet, but we're starting to figure it out. We know that Robert Rodriguez is going to direct one of these. Last season, they did stunt casting or stunt directing for the last one, Taika Waititi directing it. I'm guessing that's what they're going to do. So our big final showdown, hopefully team up, every bunch of characters come back, have a showdown over the Darksaber as Grand Moff Gideon tracks them down, gets some big reveal at the end. I'm guessing Robert Rodriguez is going to direct that one. He has a very dynamic style to his action, so he would fit an episode that's just very action-oriented. But he also directed El Mariachi Desperado, Once Upon a Time in Mexico, which are heavily influenced by Westerns. They're essentially Westerns in the modern time frame with his dynamic style to them. So you could just do a standalone episode with him, and it would bring that flair to it as well. Wherever they're going with it, I was so excited when they announced him directing. But we also know that Rick Famuyiwa, I don't know how to pronounce that, so I'm sure I botched that horribly. He's writing episode 7 of the season. Last season he directed episodes, so I guess he's directing that one. So just trying to piece together what all of this means. I have a feeling next week's going to be a little bit slow down of an episode. We've had 3 in a row now with some pretty big revelations. I strong feelings we're probably not going to have that again next week. That Jon Favreau, written, directed by him, and we're going to slow down and some quest along the way, something like that. I have a feeling that we're not going to have our minds blown for a 4th week in a row. Then again, maybe they are really going hard with this season, and episode 2 of the season really was a fluke, and they are going to go wild with this one. But you just set up the scenario that maybe next week, maybe 2 weeks from now, we have this big quest to the Jedi Temple, put the signal out there. So while he's waiting for a Jedi to show up, Grand Moff Gideon shows up. Something like that. You can imagine this scenario where he's waiting for Jedi Hero, and we got a problem because we know from last week Grand Moff Gideon is tracking him down. So there's a bunch of things that could happen. That tracker thing could become a problem next week. That they're on their way to the temple. Grand Moff Gideon catches up with him. So he just realizes he's in run mode. He's on the run from these guys tracking him down, and realizes he needs to get some help. So he goes to all of his friends in episode 7 in 2 weeks from now to have our big showdown as we try and send the signal. Maybe they send the signal at the end of episode 7. Big reveal at the end of the season is our Jedi friend shows up. Maybe you have a bunch of people return from the show Rebels, and was it Ezra shows up, Thrawn shows up. Who knows? There's all these things that could happen. This season, very heavily, they're leaning into let's pull from the books and Rebels and Clone Wars and end with a ta-da! I just said Thrawn. I just said Ahsoka Tano. I just showed you Boba Fett. And if that's what they're doing week to week on normal episodes, what are they going to do at the end of the season? You got to have some ta-da, the way that people did about Darksaber. So just imagine it ends, Thrawn shows up. It ends with Ezra showing. All these things that could happen. It would be a lot of fun. Very exciting. Real quick before I give you my final thoughts, remember I have shirts on sale. They're only $13 today and throughout the weekend. Or if you want to get a sweater, everything's 35% off for Black Friday through Cyber Monday. So there you have it. If you want one of these fun bad boys, check it out at the merch store. Link is down below in the description. In general, season 2's absolutely turned itself around from my skepticism after the first 2 episodes. And they're very much upping the game of stuff that's really exciting, that ties the world of Star Wars together and takes some of the stuff that it felt like they were treating okay, yeah, that's for the cartoons. Yeah, that's for the books. Yeah, but hey, the movies is this stuff. They're bridging that gap. The stuff that so many of the fans are most excited about is The Mandalorian, and they're pulling all of the Clone Wars Rebels into it, and Thrawn. And I think that's cool. That it's no longer feels like separate canons, even though technically they're the same canon. That's what I think is putting a big grin on a lot of our faces. Putting a big grin on my face. Very excited to see where we are headed. But it seems very exciting. Let me know your thoughts down below. You get a shirt at the link down below in the description. If you want more Mando chat, check out that video right over there. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies and TV too much.